Please pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. Dreams. That was certainly quite a dream Joseph had, wasn't it? Dreams, do you have them sometimes? Often? Never? Do you remember them? Some I do, and others I do not. I often wonder if I had remembered many of the dreams that died at the break of day, as the old hymn suggests. I wonder if my life would have changed. I wonder if I had listened to my dream world, would I have known the person talking to me, for instance? Would I have tuned in with deep attention to hear what I was being told? And would I then have taken a different path? Or perhaps I would have been able to see some part of my life in a much more clear way. This past week, I was chatting with my 8-year-old granddaughter as we were traveling in the car together. And she was explaining to me a difficulty she was having mastering a very tricky maneuver in gymnastics. I said to her, you know, a funny thing happened to me when I was about your age. I was having difficulty learning how to dive. I was much too afraid to launch myself off the diving board, as my classmates did very well, and each swim practice became an agony for me. Then I had a dream that I could do it, and indeed I learned how to dive in a dream. With disbelieving eyes, my granddaughter said, "How is that possible, Granny?" Well, being totally honest, I said, I don't know. I really don't know. But one day, I was able to jump off the diving board and position my body so that I dropped into the water very comfortably and beautifully without a huge splash after weeks of agonizing, very uncomfortable belly flops and certain derision from my teammates. Whether or not this will help her in her current situation, I can't say. However, I did end the conversation with my affirming how important I thought dreams were, and that I wished I could remember them better. Can you imagine how history would have been changed if Joseph had not paid attention to his dream? Had it just faded away when he woke up, and the all-important message just disappear into the ether? Thanks be to God, it was not so, for Joseph woke up and did as the angel commanded. Wow. Angels and prophets figure large in the readings of Advent, and their appearances are often part of a dream. The messenger appears while the subject sleeps. And throughout the Old Testament, this is true. The messages obviously got through, despite the sleep. There are so very many dream scenes that have great weight and vast importance to the Hebrew people, the people of God. Fast forward now to Joseph in the New Testament. Joseph is given the news that his betrothed is indeed to bear a child, a son, conceived by the Holy Spirit, and that he, Joseph, is being entrusted with Mary's care during her pregnancy. And in no uncertain terms, he's warned not to put her away. Such a euphemism for abandoning her in disgrace. Indeed, Joseph is given the whole story by the angel. Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. Poor Joseph, I cannot think what it must have been like to wake up from that dream. Over and over again, we're reminded of Jesus' very lowly birth. This father figure, Joseph, in loco parentis for Jesus, the Son of God, that was no easy task, I'm sure. He was just a lowly village woodworker. He probably made more coffins than he did fine dining tables. He was a carpenter, albeit from the line of the Davidic line. Joseph, son of David. Do you think Joseph remembered the passage on Isaiah, the one we read this morning? That his very dream is in fact fulfilling? Let me read it again. Therefore, the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Look, the woman is with child, and shall bear a son, and shall name him Emmanuel. That is, God with us. Who knows with any certainty, yet I imagine that Joseph had been privy to the teachings of the prophets as he attended the temple and the scrolls were read by the priests. Joseph was well versed in the expectations of new parents for their firstborn sons. Every firstborn male shall be designated holy to the Lord. As we read in Luke's Gospel, when Jesus is presented at the temple, firstborn sons were to be dedicated to the Lord along with the required sacrifice. And Joseph obviously knew what he had to do and what the expectations were for him. Joseph's dream, most surely, had great influence over his thinking and his behavior, and despite his lack of formal higher religious education, this dream must have burned into the very core of his being, to the very center of his heart. He was being called to be an agent of God in an earth-changing, no, a world-changing, a creation-changing way. The power of a dream, the message of a prophet. Do prophets still bring messages to us? Some say yes, and others disagree. But I do believe the prophets still bring their messages to us and make their pronouncements. Perhaps their vehicles are not always dreams or visions as they were in the Old Testament and in the New. Yet the messages still get to us if we are being alert, if we're in tune with God and what God is saying to us, if we're on the same channel. There, I think, is the key. We have to be on the same channel. But I do believe they get their messages through to us nonetheless, almost in spite of us. Some who might be considered latter-day prophets do still preach to us the will of God. And that's what prophets do. Prophets are the intermediary between us and God. They're the go-betweens for God and us. I'm hearing, for instance, the voices of Martin Luther King Jr., of Gandhi, of Desmond Tutu, and you can go on naming many, many. We can name them who are indeed prophets sent to disturb us, enough to move us to action. They come to disturb us enough to move us to action. That's the job of a prophet. In this moment, I pray for angels and prophets to barge into the dreams right now and show us a way forward. A way of bringing peace and equity and justice for those caught in the terrible turmoil of our current world, to those for whom Christmas will be far from a silent night. Listen to your dreams. Listen to our dreams. Give ear to our inner thoughts as they disturb us. For these thoughts may indeed be the voices of angels and prophets, moving us to action that will make us participants in bringing about God's kingdom on earth. Joseph certainly played his part. May we play our part also. Amen.